All right, Anthony and I only know one song, and I'm sure you can guess what it is. 525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments of dear.
Give it up for Jeffrey Sellers. Woo-hoo. And all the incredible shows he's made possible on Broadway. Every single day, I walk down the street.
So you wanted to meet the wizard. Let me tell you, let you come to your right place. Shall I make you a floor for a lizard?
Don't tell me not to live, just say goodnight. Life's candy and the sun's a ball of butter. Don't bring around the clouds to rain on my parade.
Cheers, friends.
Hey there,
Welcome to the Norwegian Gem.
the Broadway Cruise.
This isn't some cruise with a themed night or two. This was a full-on 4-day Broadway takeover. Real stars, real performances, and real fans who knew every word to every show tune. And in this video, we're going to take you inside all of it. The shows, the panels, the karaoke, the crowds, what worked, what surprised us, and what we'd absolutely do differently next time. If you've ever dreamed about a vacation built around your love of musicals, or just want to see how far a themed cruise can really go, you're in the right place.
We sailed on the Norwegian Gem, and this whole cruise was packed with Broadway stars, performances, and themed events. It was wild.
Now, if you're wondering what exactly a Broadway cruise is, or if it's something you'd actually enjoy, especially if you're not into dressing up or belting out show tunes, we're gonna walk you through it. This ain't your average cruise vlog. We're not here to show you a buffet or the water slides. This one's all about experiences, and if those experiences are worth the ticket price.
We'll show you what worked, what didn't, and who this cruise is really for. So whether you're a full-blown Broadway nerd, or you've got just a couple of cast albums in your playlist, stick around, we're breaking it all down.
When we booked the Broadway cruise, we didn't go through NCL's typical systems. This was a fully chartered cruise run by a company called Sixth Man. They specialize in themed sailings, everything from rock bands to wrestling. You booked directly through their website and it was just as smooth as the cruise lines. But you'll want to keep an eye on your email. Any changes, special event sales, or updates are going to come from Sixth Man, not NCL. As we got closer to the cruise date, we did have to upload our documents and do all the normal pre-boarding items through NCL.
They offered 2 ticket tiers for this cruise. The Stardust package guaranteed seats to 3 of the big headliner shows in the main theater. But if you went with the basic package, you were then entered into a lottery for limited or obstructed seats. Or you could just catch the live stream in the atrium. But let's get real, the live streams did not do these performances justice. So if seeing the big names on stage really matter to you, you've got to upgrade.
Most of the cruise events are included in the price. So the panels, the performances, the classes, karaoke, all that. But there were some add-ons, things like wine tastings, whiskey tastings, and the drag shows. Those did cost extra, and they sold out fast. Like, just got the email, click the link, boom, gone fast.
The drag brunch? Oh yeah, that sold out the same day the tickets went on sale. It was so popular. They actually added a second event, Drag and Daiquiris, to meet the demand. So yeah, if you're thinking about any of these specialty events, do not wait. Grab those tickets as soon as the email hits your inbox.
Now, honestly, this is not something we would normally book because of the price. And we're not huge theater buffs. We got a special offer code via email from a company called EBG, also known as ticketsatwork.com. So it wasn't a public offer. But if you have access to their website, normally through your work, it's worth checking out. The deal they gave us was a really good cabin rate. As we learned later, they were really trying to fill up this ship. Regardless of how you booked, everyone had access to this great discounted drink and specialty dining package, which also helped stretch the budget.
We'll talk more later in the video about what felt worth it and what didn't, but spoiler alert, if you can't swing the upgrade for the Stardust seats, it's still worth going. The talent performs multiple times in different venues, so the Stardust Theater isn't the only place to catch these big-name acts.
Now that we had our time to reflect, we can say for sure, this was not your typical cruise. The Broadway Cruise totally reworked the vibe of the ship. There were shows, panels, events, tastings, something going on every hour. And the easiest way to keep up with it all was the website sixman.net/today, which you had access to on board even without the Wi-Fi package. It updated throughout the day with scheduled changes and announcements. We added it to our home screen before we boarded, and that made a big difference.
We also kept the Norwegian Cruise Line app handy for onboard charges, restaurant check-ins, and our e-docs. Between that and the Six-Man site, we were set.
The cruise key card was a multitasker. It had your theater group and seat if you had the Stardust package, and it listed any premium events you signed up for. So we had stuff like whiskey and drag printed on ours. Super helpful. You didn't need an app or some kind of printed ticket to get into the events.
One small thing made a big difference. Don't leave that Do Not Disturb sign on when you leave the room. Six-Man drops off small gifts throughout the cruise, but if that wheel is turned to Do Not Disturb, they'll skip you. We always flipped it off when we headed out.
The photo and video policy was fair. Take quick clips or photos if you want, but no full recordings of the performances, flash, tripods, or selfie sticks. It's really about not distracting the performers or other guests, so we kept it low key and didn't have any issues. Now, we originally thought we'd do a full separate review of the NCL Gem, but after experiencing this theme sailing, we realized it just wouldn't be accurate. The Broadway Cruise completely transformed the ship. One of the pools had a giant stage over it, loungers were packed up and locked, even on the upper decks away from the performances. There was no regular NCL entertainment, no house bands, no general trivia, nothing running in the main theater that wasn't Broadway Cruise related.
And it wasn't just the entertainment. It felt like only pieces of the ship were operating. So if you've been on the Gem before, just know it's not the same experience during this charter.
As for boarding, we got to the port around 10:30 a.m. and it was smooth sailing from there. A porter grabbed our bags at the curb, security moved fast, and check-in was basically empty. We picked up our key card, lanyard, and boarding group. We got number 8.
We waited in an airport terminal style room with water, vending machines, charging stations, and Broadway tunes playing overhead. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and comfortable. Around 11:30, they started boarding. The announcements were hard to hear, and we were on board before noon.
For lunch, we headed to Ocean's right after boarding. It was quiet, no wait, and the food came out fast. It was a rare, stress-free start to the cruise.
Later that night, we ate at Magenta, one of the main dining rooms. We walked in at 6:15 and we were seated right away. The ship was sailing under capacity, about 1,600 people on board versus the usual 2,700, so wait times were short everywhere.
And for dinner, after our port day in Cozumel, we booked Cagney's Steakhouse. It was a classic upscale steakhouse with great service and calm vibe. Exactly what we needed after a hot day off ship.
Breakfast the next morning was at the buffet around 8 o'clock. Actually, 7 with the time change. It was quiet, fully stocked, and felt like a peaceful way to start the day. So while this isn't your typical NCL experience, the food and service still held up. Just don't expect the usual activities and layout. The cruise was all about Broadway, and that shaped every part of the ship.
So here's the big question going in, and honestly, it still holds. Who was the cruise really for? Because this wasn't just a regular cruise, but Broadway night tacked on. The whole thing was theater, start to finish. We're talking 4 days of shows, panels, karaoke, drag brunches, dance classes, trivia, you name it. If you weren't into Broadway, or at least Broadway adjacent, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to be there.
But you didn't have to be a total theater geek either. We didn't dress up, we didn't sing a note, and we still had a great time. Nobody was judging anybody. It wasn't about being the loudest or the flashiest fan. It was about showing up, enjoying the talent, and soaking in the energy. You could lean in as much or as little as you wanted.
The crowd leaned older too. Most folks were probably well past their 30s and 40s and so on. Lots of families, plenty of friend groups, and a good number of couples. It wasn't a party cruise or some kind of spring break scene. It felt mellow, comfortable. But no matter your age, if you enjoyed theater, you fit right in.
If you were open to chatting with people in line or joining group activities, it was easy to connect. Broadway fans are pretty welcoming. That being said, most of the events were social, so if you are a little bit on the shy side, bringing a friend might have helped make things a bit more fun.
At the end of the day, it came down to one thing. Did you want your vacation to revolve around Broadway? Because this wasn't a cruise with Broadway, it was Broadway. If that sounded like a dream, then yeah, you're in the right place.
Over and over and over till we got it right.
How about this amazing band, right?
One of the biggest reasons folk booked this cruise, of course, is for the live performances, and they delivered. The headliner shows took place in the Stardust Theater, which was cozy and comfortable, easy to navigate. If you booked the Stardust package like we did, you picked your exact seat ahead of time. That seat was yours for all three main shows. It was printed right on your cruise card, no need to show up early or fight for a spot. Honestly, that alone made the upgrade worth it.
For anyone who didn't book the Stardust package, the basic option puts you into the lottery for the leftover seats. And if you didn't get one of those, they live streamed the show in the atrium, which was nice in theory, but it really didn't capture the vibe of the show. The camera angles were a little weird, the colors looked a little off, and it felt like you were watching someone else's home movies.
Now, outside Stardust shows, performances were happening all over the ship, especially out on the pool deck. That's where we caught most of the daytime sets, but heads up here, if you wanted shade, you had to show up early. There was very little cover, and the sun was brutal during those afternoon shows. But if you did get there early, you also got the sound check, which made for a fun little pre-show bonus.
And the best part, the performers weren't just doing their sets and disappearing. You would see other Broadway stars in the audience, hanging out beside the stage, singing along, just totally vibing with each other. That kind of mutual support was really cool to see. It felt like we were all in this big, joyful theater bubble together.
All right, let's break down a few of the standout shows for us. The Sail Away show gave us a little taste from each artist of things to come.
This is, and we have more coming. So this is your cruise. This is the cast of the Broadway Cruise. You'll be seeing our various shows.
My mind is clear now, and that's all too well. I can see where we all want to be.
All right, haven't sung this for a quick 15 years.
There's a talent that could help me be the wizard if I made it. So I'll make good. Tell me where's the challenge if you'll
525,000 moments of tears. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure right?
Opening night was Anthony Rapp and Adam Pascal. Basically a dream come true if you were into Rent. They shared stories, sang classics.
Yeah, you know, as you can imagine, probably the number one question that Anthony and I both get was, what was Jonathan like? And I always have a very disappointing answer, which is I only knew Jonathan for about 4 weeks. Because I was cast in the show when we were rehearsing off-Broadway, and then he died a few weeks later. So I never really got the opportunity to get to know him as well as I wanted to, but one of the conversations that we had, it was actually the first night that we met, and he told me that his inspiration for the character of Roger was loosely based on Kurt Cobain. So.
Ana Gasteyer was a favorite. She was hilarious and quirky in the best way. I ended up seeing her again in the Stardust Theater, and it was a totally different vibe than her outdoor show. Same artist, new energy. That's the cool thing about this cruise. It lets you experience performers in multiple settings.
We caught Solea Pfeiffer and Caissie Levy set on the pool deck. They were phenomenal. But yeah, that heat was no joke, and they sang through it so beautifully.
She's back, she's walking real slow.
We made it to Corey Cott's evening set, and he sounded fantastic.
No, Nino. All right, no, enough of that. I'm Corey Cott. How's it going, everybody? I did a show called Newsies. This is from that show.
I did stay a little longer than Robert. He was starting to get a headache, so we ended up missing Brian Stokes Mitchell. It was definitely one of those wish we had rallied moments.
The butcher, the baker, the grocer, the clerk are secretly unhappy men because the butcher, the baker, the grocer, the clerk, they pay for what they do, but no applause.
And then there was Wayne Brady. I love him from Whose Line Is It Anyway? He turned the theater into a full-on improv variety hour. He was pulling people on stage, making up songs on the spot. It was wild. Felt more like a live game show than a concert in the best way.
So you wanted to meet the wizard. Let me tell you, let you come to your right place. Shall I make you a brother, lizard? Bandit bit, my, no, not me. All I care about is love. Whistle! In conclusion, motion sickness comes when you least expect it. It's a part of nature's trick.
Now, not everything went exactly as planned. Annaleigh Ashford had to cancel one of her performances because she wasn't feeling well. So totally understandable, but they didn't leave that time slot hanging. Brian Stokes Mitchell stepped up. What a total legend. The good news, we still got to see Annaleigh later in the cruise in a more personal performance, and it honestly felt kind of special catching her in that moment. And last but absolutely not least, we saw Shoshana Bean in the Starlight Theater, and she was just as charismatic on stage as she was at the whiskey tasting that we'll talk about later. The way she connects with an audience, whether she's belting out a big number or just chatting, is something special.
next song. So, I'm prepared. What's inside? Everyone wants to know. What's inside? It's so tender. That was great. What's inside? The only thing that matters is the 4 days in your arms and it all fades away but you.
All in all, the sound quality was solid across the board. Lighting was basic, but it did get the job done. And the vibe? Always fun, casual, and supportive. You could tell everybody was just truly happy to be there. So if you're wondering if the performances live up to the hype, yeah, they really do. One of the coolest parts of the Broadway cruise was how much it took us behind the curtain. It wasn't just watching performances. It was about getting to hear from the people who actually make Broadway happen. All week long, they offered panels and talks with actors, producers, creatives, even Broadway marketing pros. And these weren't just throwaway sessions. They felt personal, thoughtful, and they were packed with real stories.
Most of the panels were in smaller venues, and they were included in the price of the cruise, so no extra charges to attend. The topics were surprisingly deep, too. We sat in on one called The Business of Broadway with producer Ken Davenport, where he laid out how shows actually get made, from the budgets and fundraising to the risk producers take every time they roll the dice on a new production.
So I ask people all the time, like I did a survey of investors years ago, and they said, I don't mind that I lose money. I mind that I don't know sometimes I'm losing money because they're not getting enough communication.
Another standout for me was Broadway's impact on culture, featuring Wayne Brady and Pascal. It wasn't just fluff. They talked about how performances can shift audiences' perspective over time and how that connects to the world we live in. This one went deeper than I expected, and honestly, it makes me appreciate the power of theater even more.
This thing and the beautiful brown and black folks on stage being these historic characters, it was nothing that I expected. The music, the soundtrack was the hip hop of my youth. I'm sitting next to this beautifully coiffed, silver-haired, 60, 70-year-old lady with a fur. And then I see some brothers down there, and I went, okay, things have changed. Things have changed right now. Broadway will never be the same, and I want in.
We also sat in on the conversation with Annaleigh Ashford and Will Van Dyke on the pool deck stage. Annaleigh had been saving her voice due to sinus infection, so this was her first performance of the cruise. And it wasn't a concert, more of a sit-down chat with some singing. But it was great. Honest, funny. She even did a little improv song at the end that was totally off the cuff. Yeah, one of those fun moments you just have to be there for.
Big Local Musical. My first week on the road doing Wicked, I had $7 in my bank account, and I didn't have enough money to buy any food, so I had my mom order me a pizza from Colorado over the phone while I was in St. Louis, and I ate that pizza for like 3 whole days. Okay, Fosse, Beetlejuice, Stung by a Bee. This is so violent.
We've got to talk about the Bob Mackie documentary. That was such a surprise. Seeing how he went from being dismissed in fashion to becoming the guy for show-stopping stage looks. It fit the Broadway theme perfectly. The whole room was buzzing during this one.
The stage door autograph signing was one of the highlights, but you have to plan ahead. It was spread out over 2 days, and the second day had the bigger lineup, including Bob Mackie himself. I got in line 2 hours early and still ended up number 67. They moved us in small groups, and I was able to get all the signatures the first day, but only 5 of the 8 on the second. Annaleigh Ashford showed up for her signing even though she wasn't feeling great. That kind of commitment says a lot. The whole thing is set up as a choose-your-own-adventure. The talent is spread out in the dining room, and you can pick which tables to visit, no set path. You weren't supposed to stop and ask for selfies, but people still asked, and of course the talent obliged. Everyone was super friendly, but around 11:15, they were cutting off the line. So if this is the kind of thing that matters to you, it's worth showing up early.
Our biggest takeaway from the panels and signings? You couldn't do everything. The most popular panels, shows, and meet and greets often overlapped. So you really had to choose what mattered most to you. But if you're someone who loves the behind-the-scenes side of theater, or you just wanted to hear Broadway stars be real and unfiltered, these sessions felt like hidden gems. One of the more unique offerings on the cruise was the Broadway dance class. It was taught by real Broadway choreographers and held right out on the sports deck. We didn't participate ourselves, it was just too hot outside, but we did stop by to check it out. The choreography was pulled from Rent and the vibe was super fun and supportive. People of all ages and experience levels were giving it their best. Total judgment-free zone.
No, we didn't grab the mic ourselves, but we did swing by the piano sing-along and the karaoke nights, and those rooms were packed. I mean, standing room only packed. The sing-along took place in an atrium, not a proper lounge, so seating was very limited. Folks who got there early were real lucky. But the crowd energy was fun, everyone knew the words, and it was super supportive. You had everything from powerhouse soloists, the whole friend groups harmonizing like it's tech week for Les Mis. Yeah, if you're planning on going, show up early.
We didn't make it to the Name That Show Tune event with Wayne Brady because unfortunately it overlapped with a paid experience we had already committed to. But from everything we heard, it was a blast. It was one of those things that we were really sad to miss.
Theme nights on the cruise were something else entirely. We had Broadway divas and high school reunion, and the folks went all in. Full costumes, makeup, glitter, wigs, the works. And the Divas Costume Contest was hosted by the stage fashion legend Bob Mackie. I mean, you talk about once in a lifetime experience.
Another big crowd pleaser was the Wicked sing-along. They played the movie on the big screen and the crowd sang along, sometimes softly, sometimes full-on concert mode. No live cast or no extras, just fans enjoying the music together. One of the premium events we booked was the wine tasting with Caissie Levy. It sold out, but it didn't feel overcrowded, which made the vibe more intimate than we had expected. Caissie walked us through 4 wines, but honestly, it wasn't about the wine. It was about the stories, the laughs, and really just being in a room with someone who's lit up Broadway stages. She did a little Q&A, chatted with folks at tables, and gave us a really special hour. It was totally worth it.
Now, it's getting a little difficult to remember my resume at this point in the wine tasting.
Well, here, I can give it to you.
Yeah, could you
ready?
Could you
Yeah.
please? This is giving a little bit of Rose and Carolina Change.
Oh, there you go.
Which is a deep cut. I don't know who is familiar with. Okay. Oh, good. We love Caroline.
I signed up for the whiskey tasting with Shoshana Bean, and full disclosure, it was not about the whiskey, it was all about the talent. The whiskeys were fine. Crown Royal, Buffalo Trace, Dewars, and one other I already forgot. But Shoshana, she's the main event. Warm, funny, super open. it turned into this laid-back Q&A where she was just hanging out and sharing stories. This is what it feels like to be at a dinner party with a Tony nominee. Go for the moment. Absolutely worth it.
Just to let you all know, we are not experts. We are just big fans of whiskey. Okay. So we're just friends hanging out, having drinks. So you're not gonna learn about the casting process and how to triple distill things. If you would like that, I'm happy to pull up Wikipedia for you. Okay, we got a Kentuckian, which we are having some Kentucky whiskey.
So the first thing to sell out was the Broadway drag brunch, gone within hours of that email from Six Man. It was so popular, they added a second event, Drag and Daiquiris with Summer Orlando. That one sold out too, so if you're looking to hit either of the drag shows next year, jump on those tickets as soon as they go live.
Now, we actually had tickets for Drag and Daiquiris, and here's where it gets a little tricky. Robert ended up going to the autograph signing at the same time, so I flew solo. And yeah, it stung a little. We paid for it and had to split up. But the show itself? A blast. Summer Orlando owned the room. Broadway songs, big costumes, lots of audience participation. One daiquiri was included, pre-mixed and strong. The vibe was loud, fun, and full of fans who were living their best Broadway life.
Up in the sky, defying gravity, and you can't pull me down. Special effects. Look to the western sky. Tell them how I defy gravity.
So that's a reoccurring theme. You really do have to plan ahead. These events sell out fast, they fill up quickly, and the schedule is packed. So don't assume that you can do everything. This wasn't the only time we had to deal with overlap, and you just have to choose. Keep an eye on your emails from Six Man, read the schedule carefully, and pick your priorities. All right, we've talked about the shows, the panels, the tastings, the dance parties, karaoke, all of it. So let's cut to the big question. Was the Broadway cruise actually worth it? Now the answer is going to depend a little on who you are and what you're looking for.
This wasn't just a cruise with some Broadway sprinkled on top. This was 4 full days of living in a little floating theater bubble. It was all Broadway all the time. If you're someone who follows cast albums, watches the Tonys religiously, or just sings through an entire soundtrack without skipping a word, you'd probably be in heaven. And being around all these people who love it just as much, well, that's half the fun.
But if you're just a casual fan or thinking just as a regular cruise with a couple theme shows, it's not going to hit the same. The casino is basically empty, there's no captain's dinner, and the nightlife was way more piano bar than DJ booth. It leaned hard into the niche, and that was by design. It worked because people on board wanted that deep dive into the Broadway culture.
Now, when it comes to cost, we felt like we got our money's worth. The energy, the access to talent, the vibe, it all delivered. But yeah, if you're only a little into musicals, the price tag might make you a bit hesitant. It's a premium experience, and you really feel it most if you're soaking up all the panels, performances, and the meet and greets.
Would we do it again? Absolutely. We'd do it again in a heartbeat. We had a blast. And now that we know how it flows, we'd plan things a little differently for next time. But if you're a Broadway super fan, this is a one-of-a-kind experience. And the only real bummer is I had that ticket for Drag and Daiquiris, but skipped it to go to the autograph signing instead. There was no refund and no way to transfer it to somebody else, so that bites. But you can't wait to buy the add-ons until the schedule comes out. No way to avoid the overlap, because everything will be sold out.
Hey friends, thanks for sailing through this Broadway cruise with us. If any of this helps you decide if it's right for you, or just made you smile, go ahead and tap that like button. And if you've got questions about themed cruises or want us to check out another one, drop that in the comments.
Yeah, we really appreciate you spending part of your day with us. It means a lot. We've met some incredible folks here on YouTube, and your support keeps us going. If you're thinking about joining us for another cruise, or maybe just tagging along for a next budget-friendly adventure, We'd be honored to have you. Just hit that subscribe button. So until next time, friends, cheers.
Cheers.